The officer warned us that there is a APB out for your car. So the C2C is an event that basically mimics the Cannonball routes, and it was put together by Ben Charlie Safari Wilson. Established in 2015, I was one of the first participants in it. I was asked over a discussion talking about a Boss 351 Mustang I had back in Maine. And Ben asked me if I'd like to do it. And as time went on, it kind of dwindled away into just 3 of us doing the first event. The first event that we ran was actually from New York to LA. We all took the southern route. I took kind of the Maine, New York southern route. I established my first one as a solo. That was my first solo run, and I went from Maine to New York to Los Angeles, and then back to Maine within 7 days with a 2-day break in the middle. And then in 2018, it was the year we took the tanker. Built the tanker. In 2019, my brother and I built a car in Maine, a car that honestly probably shouldn't have been put back together. I had sourced a couple different cars and come up with some ideas. The idea of the C2C Express is to have a car before 1980 that either A, was in an original run, B, a movie car, or C, just a car under $3,000 that fit the bill of the Americana of the original Cannonball run. So the Cobra that I found was used in the Miami Vice TV show. It was a prop car. There's been a bunch of photo shoots. We've chased it around a little bit here and there. Can't find a ton of footage on it. I did find, got some paperwork from the original people who built the cars.
In February, we were talking about doing the race, and talked to my wife and said, this is the last one, and I kind of want to go. She said, well, you never do anything, so sure, go ahead. And then I was all in. Spent every night for weeks before we got the car going to make sure this thing would make it across country. I'd been involved in building the Galaxy, and that thing looked like a death trap, and I didn't want to ride in a death trap across country.
So we got ready to go on the C2C, and the next morning was really kind of an open day. There was a lot of people that were broke down. There was a lot of people that hadn't made it. So my brother and myself took it upon ourselves to, start working on people's cars. But the worst prank I had pulled on me in this whole weekend was we were on our way to New York, and Travis Hilton messages me. Travis Hilton's a co-pilot. My brother's going to be the navigator. Travis Hilton messages me, and he says, hey, by the way, did you know I can't drive standard? And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And I'm kind of stressed out because I'm trying to get to Alex's and get everywhere. And I'm looking at my brother. And my brother doesn't say much, but he kind of puts his hands up and he goes, are you effing kidding me? So we're stressed out the whole way down there. So we get up to Alex Roy's, and honestly, I've never met Travis beyond him driving the Galaxy to get beer from the previous run and dropping him off the airport. We are Facebook friends, but we don't really have any interaction beyond that. So now I'm thinking again, co-pilot malfunction. It's happened to me years and years. And I was just like, well, my brother's like, well, I can drive if we need to. And I'm just praying to God that my brother doesn't have to drive. Because the conversation we had when he asked about driving is, I said to Arthur, I said, I plan on going to jail. And my brother looks at me and he goes, well, maybe I'll drive on the way home then. So we get down there and we walk into Alex's and we go upstairs, and Travis, Abercrombie and Fitch model. He's a lawyer. Even his shorts have no creases in them. His t-shirts look good. And he's big smile on his face. Hey, Fred, how's it going? And I was like, not too bad, Travis. Great to see you. He's all wide-eyed and anxious. And he says, how'd you like the joke? I'm oblivious. I have no idea what he's talking about. I said, what joke? He goes, the joke I told you on the way up. And I said, Travis, I don't know what you're talking about. That I can't drive standard? And he did. He had me. I had no clue. I was literally frothing at the mouth on the way down there. And he busted me. I laughed about it. And of course, we joked about it over a beer. We get back to the garage and we're watching everybody put their cars together. And the first thing we immediately noticed is everybody is strapping their cars with C2C banners and 40th anniversary. And I'm a racing guy, and I want every single advantage I can get when I race. As I saw this taking place, my car kind of sticks out, but it sticks out in a different way. It doesn't say, hey, look at me. I'm driving across the country as fast as I can, and not only am I going to do this, I'm going to put an advertisement on it so I can show you what I'm doing. And apparently, Travis and my brother had been conspiring. They come up to me. We had a plan. We were going to leave the next night at 10 p.m. Well, now it's already 11:30, 11:45. And my brother pulls me aside. He says, yeah, Travis and I want to talk to you. I'm like, okay. He says, what do you think about leaving at 3 a.m.? I'm like, 3 a.m.? That's like 3.5 hours or so, and sleep doesn't bother me, but if I can get some, it would be nice. I figured if we left the next day, I'd get a good night's sleep, you know. So anyway, we decided we were going to leave at 3 a.m. To leave at 3 a.m., you got to leave realistically at 2 a.m. by the time you get fueled up, the time you get everything ready to go. So we head to the garage. I look at my brother and I look at Travis, and they look back at me and I look back at them, and we're all thinking the same thing. How are we all going to fit in this car? So we got 3 guys, you know, my brother's probably the shortest one, right around 6 foot tall. Travis is a good, 6'3", 6'4", all of that. And the Mustang driver's seat has been set up for him and I to drive. So I looked at my brother and I looked at Travis, and he looked back at me, and Travis says, I know what you're thinking. I said, you do? He says, but I'm going to tell you one thing. All my luggage has to go with us, because if we break down, I have to get on a plane and leave. So I looked around, looked back and forth, and there's the Shrekmobile sitting right next to us. And I looked at Artie, and Artie goes, what? I opened the back door of Bradley Young's Shrekmobile and started heaving luggage in the back of it. I threw all our luggage in the back of his truck. Bradley has no idea this is going on. I slammed the doors. I write a note on the back of a $20 bill, and I pin it to his dashboard. It says, see you in California. Thanks for bringing our luggage. Stuck it on the dashboard. So we take off. Everything's going well, looking pretty good. Get up to the dumpster and go to take our picture and snap it. And we head out, and I start rowing the gears in the old Cobra. We look over our shoulder, and there's 2 cops sitting at the bank. So now it goes from rowing the gears to getting out of Dodge. I am flying as fast as I can by the bocce grill. Lo and behold, my brother's trying to navigate, and Travis is trying to look in the mirror to see if they're coming. And my brother goes, you need to take a right turn onto the interstate. Well, I understand a right turn, but it's a hairpin. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's a hairpin. You literally go turn and go back around. I locked up the brakes, slid across the median, and just made the interstate. So in the first mile of the whole event, I've almost got arrested and I've almost wrecked the car. So we get on the interstate and we get going.
I was expecting to be terrified. And it never really hit me till we were either going across Ohio or Nebraska. And I turned to him and said, this is actually really fun. Because even though I'm sitting in the back of the Mustang, about like this, because Travis has to have leg room in front, and Fred's driving, this is absolutely fun. And I tell him, yeah, I'm glad I didn't decide to go on the first one, or else we would have made every single one after that. And probably gone broke trying to make it as reliable as I wanted it to be.
We had our average up around 96.6-ish for the first few hours. And our first fuel stop was the western side of Ohio. I had driven out of the dark and into the daylight, and Travis took over. And Travis is an awesome wheelman. He's just good, attentive, pays attention. But we started hitting traffic, and that average started coming down. And Travis is getting mad. Travis doesn't get mad about much. He's a pretty easygoing guy. And he says to me, he goes, this is BS. This does not happen. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, I'm not the anchor. And I go, what do you mean, Travis? He's like, I know what my averages are. And he goes, because that's what we do. We're math guys. We do the average in our head. You can see the timer on the clock. You know how many miles you go in an hour. Tripometer doesn't lie. The time doesn't lie. And he's like, I'm not the anchor. I said, Travis, it's traffic. It's all going to sort itself out. We're going to be fine. Everything was pretty much fine. We had a few, shut the brake lights off, momentary put switch for fuel, transfer fuel. Everything was going great. And then the car died. And Travis is like, what is going on? I was like, I don't know. He's like, I'm going to pull over. So he went to pull to the side. And what had happened is the vent cap on the steel tank was on too tight. So it created a suction, so it sucked it out. So I had my brother reaching back and unscrewed it off the top. It was strange because it would only do this up around 140, 130, 140. It would have this fit. The car would go into a little bit of a fit. So just like anything else, is that you learned, okay, well, we don't drive it that fast. We drive it just below that. So we get into Nebraska. And everybody's up now. Everybody's going. We're chasing. Everybody's, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? It's kind of neat because you're getting the banner back and forth. And everybody's like, has anybody heard from Deb and Chuck? I'm like, no. I said, I don't know. When did they leave? And everybody's scrolling through their feed trying to find out what their timestamp was, when they went. Chuck and Deb had left, I think, were like 12:01. All of a sudden, we get a pop-up in the thing. It says, they're in Omaha, Nebraska. I looked around. I was like, we're in Omaha, Nebraska. Before you know it, we see Chuck and Deb. And Travis starts putting chase to them. They got an awesome car. They had an old Cutlass, this beautiful car, no expense spared, really cool. So they're, trying to get past each other. And I was looking at Travis. I said, Travis, if they had run this hard the whole way, they wouldn't be trying to get ahead of us now. And we knew they had 3 hours on us. So we knew that it was no issue. We were ahead of them. Well, about that point, we had to pull over and get some fuel. Pulled over, fueled up, swapped drivers and stuff. We get on the interstate and we go about 5 miles. And there's Chuck on the back of the old Cutlass with his hands above his head being frisked by the Nebraska State Police. And we go by like really nonchalantly in the left lane, really trying to go by quietly. And Deborah starts messaging and they thought that he had kidnapped her. So they had to go through this whole routine of getting everything sorted out. She told us at the time, she goes, that the officer warned us that there is a APB out for your car. And I'm like, what? So we get about 10 miles down the road. And as anybody who's in Nebraska knows it, the state tree's a telephone pole. There's nothing else out there. And I can see for a mile ahead. And I see way, way, way up on the median, there's an officer sitting there. So I see him long before he sees me, but he's pointed eastbound. And I'm like, all right. So I'm rolling up. And I get probably within 100 yards of him. And he whips his head around, right, stares at me, locks eyes right. And I'm coasting by as quiet as I can in that car. And we get out on him about 300 yards and he whacked us with a laser. And we were going the speed limit. And we jammed it, obviously, but we jammed it to interfere with it. And it didn't matter. We weren't going fast enough for it even to be effective. But then we decided about that time it was time to get out of Nebraska. So we got out of sight and there was no more real cop incidents through Nebraska. And we got down into Colorado. We ran the mountains at a pretty good speed. About that time, coming down the other side, we started seeing the tractor trailers. Somebody had started telling them that we were coming at a high rate of speed. Because we'd run our light bar and we'd try not to blow the mirrors off the trucks, but we kind of would give them a wave when we went by type thing like, hey, we're not trying to, we got something we're doing. We're not trying to be jerks. We were, I guess. So we got to the point where they started doing the block thing. When I mean the block thing, we were getting in construction where even in the construction it's 60 miles an hour, but they're driving 35 and 40. So at that point it's intentional. We get by them and we're driving along and we're getting ready for our next stop to next driver swap. My brother starts talking to me and he's like, we really need to start figuring out what we want for a time. So we went to the list to see what the number was. And 3205 was obviously the number that we had seen.
My brother is the most creative person I know. He's the most conscientious driver I know. Because not only does he can drive fast when he needs to, but he doesn't drive fast when he doesn't need to. When you're riding with him, it's not like you're driving fast. I've ridden with people where they aren't driving particularly fast, but you just start doing this as they come up to back of an 18-wheeler and then slam it into the left lane and you wonder how they missed the rear bumper of the car. But he's just so aware and conscientious of not disturbing other people. It's like when we'd roll up onto the other cars, that car was loud. It was crazy loud. We'd pull over into the left-hand lane easily, roll by him without being on the gas, no sound, we were way ahead of him, put it back to the carpet.
We're headed to Las Vegas. we're driving along. We get through Las Vegas, and we're running a pretty good clip. We're probably running 125, 130. Travis says, "Can you take the wheel?" And I said, yeah, sure. He goes, "I gotta go to the bathroom." Kid hasn't gone to the bathroom the whole time. Never. Not when he was resting. Not at all. He hasn't gone to the bathroom at all. Unless maybe he went in on a stop. I said, all right, no problem. So we're going along. He hasn't let off. He's right on the gas. We're still going 125, 130. He says to my brother, he says, "Can you hand me the shake jug?" And my brother goes, "Yeah, sure, no problem." So he hands it to him. We're going along, and he's going to the bathroom, and I'm fine. I'm driving along. It's wide open freeway. Just driving along for the passenger seat. Rolls down the window, dumps it out the window. Okay. He goes again. I'm like, okay, he's got to go. The guy said he's got to go. He's got to go. So he dumps it out the window. He goes again. At this point, I'm like, "This is a guy a camel?" So I'm driving along, and like I said, I'm sitting in the passenger seat. I'm holding the wheel. I'm watching the road, and he's not letting off. I mean, we're going 125, 130. Dumps it out the window. He goes again. He went 4 times, and by this point, I'm all but dying laughing. Finally, he finishes up and rolls up the window, and we go. We get into California. We go through the agricultural stop. And California was pretty uneventful, but by the time we had gotten to Barstow, we pretty much knew 3159 was a memory. We basically cut our losses and said, we need to protect what we have. Gotta be smart about it. There's nothing smart about, transcontinental racing, but be as smart as you can to preserve, to take a little bit of the beating off the car. Because we ran the Rocky Mountains, and I'm not even kidding, we ran like 110, 115 at fourth gear at like 48 to 5,500. The car just 186,000 miles, built out of junk. The car was taking a thrashing. So we figured if we can just preserve the car and keep it together. So at that point, Travis was driving. He was going along, and I was trying to keep him from, it was like trying to pull a pit bull back. He wants to go as fast as he can. I'm trying to pull him back. We saw a couple of cops, but at that point, it didn't matter. We weren't going fast enough to get any major attention. So we go down around, and we do a live video as we pull in, and we get out. I think our time was 31:47. So we get out, and we are road grime. It's just that nasty, sticky, dirty feeling, V8 American horsepower, worked on my car before I raced it type feeling. And we're just gross. And we get out, and we're the first ones there. We're the first ones across the country, which was cool.
Even if we didn't make a record, even if we broke down when we first lost power in the car, it still would have been one of the funnest times of my life to do it with him, and just to say we did something that probably nobody else in our state does or ever did.
Probably the best part of the awards and stuff is we were talking, I'm telling the story about Travis Hilton and, having to use the bathroom, while we're driving. Because everybody always asks. It's one of the number one questions. It's always the elephant in the room. How'd you go to the bathroom? So I'm telling the story, and I'm laughing about it. I thought the funniest part was over. So I'm sitting there telling the story. And my brother's standing next to me, and he's pretty quiet. And he's had a couple beers, and he's kind of listening alongside. And I said, "Oh, yeah." I said, he dumped it out again. And the guys are laughing, and they're joking. And my brother pipes up, and he sticks his head in the conversation. He says like this, and he says, "And the worst part of it is all coming in the back window and hitting me in the face."
We'd like to thank AvalonKing for their continued support of the VINwiki YouTube channel. I have their Armor Shield 9 ceramic coating on all my cars, and I love it. The increased shine, the reflectivity, the ease of cleaning, and the protection of the paint all make it a tremendous thing to add value and protection to your car. You can check it out at the link in the description below, and we're going to continue to experiment and do interesting projects like the S55, which hopefully at some point soon will get to be shot off the cliff to see if it protects your car in the event of an accident.
Oh, that's cute, Ed. I'm over here at Gina's Garage with AvalonKing building a V12 supercar from scratch. Yeah, we're way past ceramic coatings now, buddy.
Okay, well, we'll hear more from Casey about the King Zero project later this month. But again, thank you to AvalonKing for supporting the channel. Check them out in the link in the description below.